Welcome to the MFS Wellness Podcast, a hybrid structure encompassing health, fitness, self-improvement, and entertainment, where no topic is off limits and all opinions are graciously welcomed.
Let's get on with the show!
And now, here's the host of the show, Mike Sinopoli.
This is the MFS Wellness Podcast. I am Mike Sinopoli. It is Monday, January 20th. It is MLK Day. It is also the NCAA Football National Championship. And TikTok has died and has been resurrected in just a matter of 12 hours. The United States presidential inauguration has taken place, and Donald J. Trump is officially back in office. It is freezing absolute Yeti balls outside throughout our country. And after all of that, we still found a way to put the kibosh on red dye number 3 here in the United States as part of making America healthy again. So that will be the premise of today's episode, is making America healthy again, but not necessarily going too far deep into the initiative spearheaded by RFK, but we will touch on that. But we will also be giving you other pointers here on what we believe should be the right path to make America healthy again. And joining me is a gentleman who has been on the show before. He is a trainer. He is out in Washington, D.C. His name is Nick Becht. Nick, how you doing, sir?
Doing wonderful, Mike. Thank you for having me, man.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, man. Nick and I have been back and forth, not even in an argumentative way, but just kind of like figuring out this Make America Healthy Again initiative, talking about this a little bit with RFK coming in, a career Democrat coming in and working with Donald Trump. It's like, I don't know, political theater to me in some cases. What's going on here? Elon Musk's involved with this. It's just like, it's like Life season 5 is starting again here, and it's just weird out there is really what it is. So what we want to do, Nick, so you've been vocal, and this is how this podcast episode came up, because you've been putting a lot out there in regards to this Make America Healthy Again initiative that was kind of added into the Make America Great Again initiative through Donald J. Trump's campaign. So what, with your expertise, with where you're from, I know you're pretty decorated with a lot of science background and things like that. What drove you to kind of like dig into this Make America Healthy Again, and what do you think about it? Where are you starting with it? So
yeah, I mean, it all started honestly. All putting it all on the table. I was a huge RFK fan during the running, and I just kept close with him throughout the entire thing. So I've had a pretty close eye on RFK and a lot of his policy. That being said, once he kind of dropped out and started to push this MAHA agenda, I, of course, looked deep into that as well. I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is exactly up my alley. This is what I care about, what I'm passionate about. Let's see what he's got to say. And honestly, it was like unveiling. I was just so upset with everything that was kind of proposed. It was just all out of left field, all very against the grain of what I would consider is productive and would actually push the needle in terms of improving our health in this country. Mm-hmm. So I thought, hey, I think that we should probably start to talk about this, and maybe it might reach him. Who knows? Maybe he's just receiving bad information, and I can see that he's very interested and motivated to make a change in terms of our country's health. I just don't necessarily think that the changes proposed are going to do much at all.
Yeah, and you've put together some good points on that as to where the current science to where it's at isn't necessarily jiving with what they're doing and the things that they're changing. And the one thing I mentioned in the intro a little bit that we started talking about, and I don't want to get too deep into the red dye number 3 that had the news for about 48 hours, and everyone was rejoicing. Other people were like, well, this is not a big deal. I'm sort of on the fence with it all, as they banned a dye that has been associated with cancer, but in an extreme sort of way, right? You want to, I want to put that out there because you did the work, you did the research, and what did you find in this red dye 3? This is going to kind of give you guys a little bit of an, an overview of kind of way to think a little bit more into it, look more into it. So what did you find about this red dye 3 that was not exactly what we think?
Yeah, I think that this certain circumstance is a good kind of just wraparound of like exactly what's going on with the Maha movement in general, and maybe some of the misunderstandings or misapplying information that, you know, they're they're trying to kind of make it bigger than it is really what I'm trying to say. With red dye number 3, the FDA's decision on that was fairly obligatory, meaning that we have this clause within our Food Additives Amendment of 1958. That clause is called the Delaney Clause. Basically, it states that if we find any evidence of food additives, because they don't supply any nutritional value to us, if we find any evidence of these additives causing cancer, either in a human or animal studies, then we have to ban them. What they found with red dye number 3 was it caused cancer within male rats specifically at 210 times the exposure of which any individual would come across on a day-to-day basis. So it is very difficult, if not impossible, to reach the toxicity levels in which we would come across red dye number 3. And then on top of that, just to push even further, they could not replicate this data in different species or even within the same species, but in female rats. So, and then to push even further onto that, the place in which we found the tumors within the thyroid of the male rats, that does not exist within human physiology. And so it's a big question mark as to whether or not this dye does in fact cause cancer in humans. And then on top of that, are we ever going to reach an exposure rate to where this dye would be bad for us in general? Most likely not. My main pushback and concern to that is we are removing something in which we know does not harm us and or causes in very small amounts of people, and in fact, I'm talking about red dye 40 in this case, small amounts of people, it might cause some irritation or a slight increase in your ADHD symptoms, for instance, in children, by the way, to also put that down to an even denser population or smaller population. So the concern, is really, I guess, a lot further out from the reality of the situation. And then now we have to address new questions that have been, promoted by this decision. My issue being, we're taking the time and the resources to handle this situation now when we could be utilizing that time and resources dealing with things that are proven to actually impact our health.
I see. So your stance, and I think I agree with it, is that this is so minuscule in a sense when you do the studies and when we have the information available to us. And you said 210 times the amount is what caused the tumors in the male rats in a body part that doesn't even exist in the human anatomy, right? Is that what you're saying?
Within an area within the body part that we still have a thyroid gland,
Okay,
but we do not have the part of the thyroid gland that
all
is
right
present in the
I wanted
male.
to get that and make sure I had that correct. Okay,
Absolutely,
gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha. And then, so for instance, when they say 210 times, what is that like? What are they basing that on? Like, what is that? So, like,
Yeah.
is that like per serving of, say, let's just say something that has a red dye in it? Number 3 would be like a Sour Patch Kids. So, one serving of Sour Patch Kids, I don't even know, 100 calories and I don't know, 20 grams. I don't know. I'm just
Right.
making it up. Is that you saying 210 times that is what they're basing it off? Do we
Yeah,
know?
so it's not like when you look at the back of a serving size on, any nutritional label and that says, this is your serving size, but then people can overeat by, 8 or 9 or 10 of those, right? This is a lot of people who are doing the studies behind this that are working in public health, they consider the toxicity rate or, the area in which you become, exposed to toxic levels, whether that be, exposing you to cancer or something else. They consider all sources that you're consuming throughout a day. So they're not considering what your appropriate dose should be. They're considering what does the average American consume. And this is a good point to actually also mention. They do the same thing with fluoride consumption. which is another thing that RFK is pushing within the Maha movement to kind of address. Though the science behind toxic levels of fluoride consumption are not very strong, and our EPA still holds that we are keeping a low dosage of fluoride that will still benefit our health, but not expose people to toxic levels, considering all of the intakes and areas of which you get fluoride, that being, your toothpaste and a bunch of other products. I mean, fluoride's a mineral, so we're talking about it being in many different things and most likely your food as well.
Okay, I see. So that being said, now we're not going to spend too much time talking about this red dye 3 because I don't think it's that big of a deal, like we just kind of said. So, I mean, for what Nick has presented here, the studies he's shown, and I don't know. It's the jury's technically out, right? In all, but you made a pretty good case that this really, based on the tests within rats, that it's not going to cause cancer in people at any level. So we can assume that as far as what we know. Going forward, though, what we had a hard time finding was an actual outline or list of something official for Make America Healthy Again. Or am I correct? Because I was not able to find anything. We were kind of looking. So I found something here, just to kind of outline it a little bit of what these initiatives are. This comes from ajmc.com. This is technically an opinion article. This is from November 15th, and it's 5 health policy stances for RFK. Author is Juliana Grossi. So this is just an opinion piece, but she's apparently done the work here and has kind of put everything together. So the first thing is food and nutrition. Trump has promised that Kennedy's leadership will focus on combating chemicals, pollutants, and additives that he claims to contribute to chronic disease in the United States. Kennedy is known for touting healthier diets, discouraging seed oils, and pesticide-heavy agriculture. He advocates for raw milk despite health risks associated with unpasteurized dairy. His potential influence on dietary recommendations would likely face challenges in balancing industry interests with public health goals. So that's sort of the first initiative there, which is kind of what we talked about with, this red dye here. But what do you make of the rest of that? Sort of talking about, things that have had a lot of buzz on social media. I'm always seeing the seed oil thing. I'm always seeing the raw milk thing. I'm seeing everybody terrified of all this stuff. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be fucking honest with everybody. I am sick of it all, and I don't care. I'm sorry, but I think it's just too much with this is bad. This is not good. Stop having this. This is causing you to die. Do you know how much freaking terrible fear we're causing around food? This goes back to the first episode I did with Nick. We connected because we had a like-minded thing about bad foods and calling things bad. And the biggest culprit to anxiety, to eating disorders, to mental health issues is fucking fear. And a lot of this stuff, and I think why we're doing this, is to eradicate the fear around these foods. So what do you make of some of this stuff that's just sort of listed here? Pesticide agriculture, seed oils. What do you think? What's your stance there?
Yeah, I would say that I think that RFK comes from that time where, his generation was really touching into the natural and, from the earth sort of wave of things. And I think that probably took a little bit of a grip on him. I think that his work with climate, change and stuff like that, and holding companies accountable for the chemicals that they're, throwing into our environment might have carried over into his perception of the food environment as well. And I don't think that one-to-one carries over, honestly, right? We talk about chemicals in our food, but a lot of things that are on the back of your nutrition label are just broken down chemical versions of natural products. And then on top of that, I'm not going to deny that there are chemicals in our food, but a lot of those chemicals have double purposes where people might try to make some flashy video about, I can't remember the chemical name for baking soda, but somebody was like, oh, they can buy this. And then they went to Home Depot and they were like, and then here it is. And I'm like, guys, it's baking soda. You literally make cakes. Don't tell me you didn't make your kid a cake. Like we all use chemicals. And then on the back of baking soda, you can see it tells you that you can also do a science experiment with your kids. So yeah, there's a lot of chemicals that we physically can metabolize and have a lot of research and science behind them. The FDA is very stringent about this process, and it obviously we have to do a lot of catch up because of course we're introducing things, we're modernizing, we're creating new things all the time. And so the FDA has to address those things as they come at them. And so that's going to take time as well. But we have to look at these things at an individual basis. We can't blanket statement just say chemicals are bad for us because yes, there's absolutely, I believe, chemicals within our food system. In fact, seed oils, when reheated, are very dangerous for our health. That needs to be addressed, and we haven't addressed that. So that's something that we could address. I personally think that seed oils are healthy for us if we don't reheat them multiple times over, but I also don't think that fast food's healthy for us. So it's not necessarily that people are making the right decision when they go to eat something like that anyways.
Right.
And so I think that, this whole focus on chemicals paints a nice story for people to get behind. And I think that it really, I would say that it's like rage baity almost because it gets people, it gets the people going, right?
Well, listen to me. I'm already swearing and pissed off right now. Go ahead.
but and you know what? That's really great. But I think that people are really excited about the wrong things. And they're just getting introduced into this conversation where a lot of us have been having this conversation for decades, right? And we have a lot of propositions that simply haven't even been looked at by policymakers. And I think that's the biggest issue right now is that there are actual things people have spent time to put together that are actual solutions, and we have proven issues with that are constantly rejected by policymakers, and they're not even mentioned by presidential candidates. So it's good that we're finally talking about it, but it's not the right things.
But yeah, and I wonder and I worry about things like this. Like, I don't want to beat this red dye to death, but it's just sort of been at the forefront of our minds here. So when you think about it, okay, well, let's rejoice that we're banning this. But what is that actually in? It's in garbage food. It's in,
exactly.
Again, no bad food.
Nutrient devoid food.
Nutrient devoid, lesser, not as nutrient dense. Right. So what does that do? So you're excited to have this. You think they're going to put in some new chemical or new dye in there that's going to make you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger? You're going to, it's like you're going to have we're going to put Ozempic in there. They're going to make you just slim down. No, you're still going to be eating crap. And who knows what will be in there and what will we find out about that in 10 years of what else has been put in there. So you can't get that excited about it. That's my point, is why I'm not against it. I get it. I think maybe there could be some good to it. I just don't know yet. And that's where I stand. I don't know. But I hear you that what we're doing is putting this dye and stuff, which is like not even the root of the problem even close. It's like, it's like not even touching the roots of a problem.
I would say like it's easy for people to also say like I want to like what's the problem with just removing it even if it doesn't harm us, like we don't need that non-natural stuff in our food. I would then ask you, is the natural version better for us? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Because when we're talking about food colorings, for instance, now let's say this, we could remove all food colorings and we can get even deeper on that. And I could tell you that that's going to impact our food supply and people actually engaging in eating food and letting food go to waste. That's a big argument of itself. But, we can also talk about just what are you going to replace it with in the first place? And when we're talking about natural foods, we also have to think about natural food allergens. People are, for instance, allergic to beets. So not all people are going to actually be able to eat things that are, colored with beet color, for instance, or carrots or whatever it might be. Not all people are able to eat stuff like that. I don't know, I'd have to look more into the trace amounts and how much that might actually make people react to those things. But it's also an individual level. Everybody, has a different level to which they react to their allergies. And we just don't see that with the unnatural version like red dye 3, right? But it's a chemical, it's unnatural, and so that's flashy, let's remove it.
Right. That's exactly what that sounds exactly right. And then where did a lot of these allergies come from? It seems like, some of them have been,
I had
where
no idea.
that's just like,
I had no
that's
idea
one.
about that.
No, I don't know at all. But yeah, it was
They
funny
thought that
because,
if you, I think it was with peanut allergies, didn't they? Weren't they like, don't let anybody have peanuts until age whatever, and then that actually increased peanut allergies, and now we're like, now we think we should expose kids to peanuts or something.
well,
Don't take
exactly.
my word for it, but I think
Hey,
that's it.
that's why they say, man, they're always changing the science and switching it up a
Yep.
little bit, and it's always evolving. And just so you know, yeah, like I just quickly while you said the thing about baking soda earlier, I just wanted to go back to that. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
this is what you can do to spin something. You make a cake, you use baking soda in it, and it's also an antacid. It's a deodorizer and cleaner. So I could tell somebody that, hey, guess what? I used cleaner in this cake today. I'm not lying to you. I did because I used baking soda. But we don't think that because it's just normalized, And
Yeah.
again, if I didn't look up what the actual term, the actual like scientific term for baking soda is or whatever it might be in
The
there,
chemical name.
the
Mhm.
chemical name. I did not, but whatever. But I could just tell somebody, hey, guess what's got this in it, and it's a cleaning agent. I just thought it would taste good in the cake. No one's gonna touch that cake at a party. But if I said, yeah, baking soda is one of the ingredients,
Oh man.
they're gonna eat it. This is the way it
Yep.
is, and that's just the fear base that you know that we
Yeah.
go by. And I once read something somewhere, I don't remember, but I'm gonna see if I can get it out. That the covering, the coating on a bullet, is the same color coating that they'll use on jelly beans. I don't know
Mhm.
if this is right or wrong or total bullshit, but I saw this somewhere. But I'm going to make a point of it anyways, because how you word that, right? It makes you, oh, the jelly beans use the same coating they put on bullets. It's like, ugh, it doesn't make me want to eat that, right? But like, if you said, hey, this has got jelly bean coating on it, you can eat the bullet. Oh, or you can lick the bullet. Someone would go lick the fucking bullet and be like, look, it's edible. See,
That's
they use
good.
it. They use it in jelly beans. See, that's just the way you put it. That may not be the best example, but that's just kind of a way people respond to things. So going on here, number two, and I haven't been anywhere near, guys. I'm actually going to ask Nick a lot of questions because I have not been as in the weeds as he has with this. But another one here on this article for RFK's Make America
Hmm.
Healthy Again initiative is ending the chronic disease epidemic. I'm not going to go through and read all this, but it looks as if this is something to do with the related to COVID-19, lack of efficiency of the CDC, thinking it's a vaccination related, autism through vaccination type stuff. You kind of hear about that sort of thing. I believe that's kind of what we're looking at here. Um, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, well, I think one of the actual statements that RFK has said is, taking funding from medical, research and trying to bring and pharmaceutical research and trying to bring that more towards nutraceuticals and natural medicines, essentially,
Mhm.
healing with whole foods rather than healing with other things. And the emphasis is, I think, prevention, right? We're trying to move from being sick all the time to pushing generations forward that aren't, falling into this, habit of overeating and under exercising and all that stuff and not eating the right things. I think the biggest issue with an approach like that is that, shoot,
It's all
sorry,
right,
you're gonna
man.
have
No,
to edit this,
I got something to say here while you're doing that.
please.
One piece to hear that RFK was he was on Fox and Friends, and this is a quote from him. Excuse me. He said, "When I was a kid, the autism rate among American children, and in the 70-year-old men today in my generation, is 1 in 10,000. In his children's generation, it's 1 in every 34 kids in every 22 boys." So, but they go on to say that RFK fails to acknowledge that the reason for this is unknown. There are various factors that could contribute to the increase. Although autism may have been documented by fringe psychiatrists in the early 1900s, it wasn't recognized as a disorder or included on the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 3 until the 80s. So I guess the autism records don't go back as far as he's stating there. But then again, I don't know. You just have to
Yeah.
wonder where that's coming from, and I don't know. It's factual. It's just factual by
Mhm.
observation. I don't know. So it's maybe this one here, is less vaccination related, but more based on behavioral issues and chronic diseases
Chronic disease, yeah.
to kids. Now I'm
I found what I was trying to pull up, by the way, if you
all right. Yeah, no, go ahead. I was just
Mhm.
filling in there for you while you were
appreciate that.
getting your
Yeah. I
things
was trying to
together.
find a note on something. So
Buddy,
basically,
I got a big mouth. I could talk all the time. So don't worry. If you need a
appreciate it.
minute, just say, "Yo, hold up," and I'll just read some shit.
Yeah, so with the chronic disease stuff, he's trying to basically switch funding. My issue is that we don't necessarily need to switch funding because all of this is underfunded already. We're talking about a different budget size here compared to what we give our, military, for instance. So we're talking about one of the most important issues at home on the home front, which is our consistent issue of chronic disease. It's an epidemic at this point, right? I mean,
Yes.
it is out of control. There's 100,000 preventable deaths per year in America because of the chronic disease epidemic. I mean, this is ridiculous. The fact that we're not talking about this, the fact that people are dying every single day that could have been prevented if policymakers were talking about it a decade ago would be insane.
And
I mean,
And just to clarify, with
Yep.
chronic illnesses, you're speaking, and this is speaking of cancer, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes mainly, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the top main chronic preventable
Preventative.
deaths. Yes,
Yes.
preventative. Yes.
Yes. Okay, go ahead. I'm
So
sorry, sir.
you know, we're polling. He's saying we want to pull funding when I think that we should just be adding funding. I totally agree with him. I think that it is important to look at nutraceuticals. I personally think that it's a little bit more important to look at them on a sense of, we have a lot of supplements on the market that are interacting with medications that are making them either inefficient or harming people. We need to understand how natural remedies impact our pharmaceutical remedies. I think that's a really important thing to look at, especially because people are already sick. So we need to consider those people. Most people are already sick, so we need to consider those people, right?
Mhm.
At the same time, we need to start pushing for preventative measures more. I mean, it's right in front of us. And I don't really think we need too much research on this because of a lot of it really just comes down to accessibility of solutions, in my opinion. I think that it, comes down to our accessibility for the most impacted people, low income individuals who are the ones who are primarily suffering from chronic diseases, who are the ones who are making up that statistic that we're talking about here for the most part. They're the ones that are suffering from, lack of nutritious foods within their communities. They're suffering from lack of healthcare providers and or specialists, right? We're talking about 80% of low income communities are without a cardiac specialist, which is the number one cause of death, or at least, that whole area.
Mhm.
Cardiovascular disease is the number one cause of death in the country. So, what are we doing? Right? There's no one to even give them guidance on what they most likely will die from. So
Very, very true. And that is the biggest. It's education is number one. Is educating people on how to avoid a chronic illness. I wonder why we don't. I can go down a rabbit hole with that, but I won't because we're just not going to do that today. But there is not a lot of money to be made in preventative measures. And I don't want to even say medicine because that would make money.
I'm going to say it actually.
Go
There's
ahead.
not a lot of money to be made on the insurance side if you don't have somebody who's sick.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to say. It's not really even a conspiracy at this point. That's actually
With the caveat to that being the actual specialists care. They care. They want you to succeed. The insurance doesn't. And that's been very apparent by this whole United Healthcare incident and the conversations around that. I mean, we just have a broken system in terms of healthcare that needs to be addressed. I don't think that we need to talk about it on this podcast, or at least this episode.
No. We can do another thing on that. I have to get
Yeah.
myself even deeper in the weeds on it. I know it's almost too depressing, I'd say, to think about,
It's tough.
to kind of see like how these insurance companies can just, even if you have coverage, they're still just going to lay a thousands of dollar bill on you just for whatever reason. Yeah, no, that's another
And people are
topic.
going to ask, people are going to, just one more caveat to
Yeah,
that.
go
People
ahead.
are
Go
going to
ahead.
say, but the insurance makes more money if you're healthy. Yeah, but they also don't provide services under their coverage. So they're taking your money and not providing you services at the same time.
Right.
So they are still winning at the end of the day, regardless of your health.
Yep. It's a shame, is what it is. But hell, we'll deal with that another time because there's, like I said, that's a whole nother sector of it, and then that's where you just kind of turn back to the red dye and just like,
Yeah.
wow, what this?
Hmm.
What is this? So, anyways, number 3 on this list here, FDA policies, alternative health treatments. Kennedy is critical of the FDA's approach, especially regarding its regulation of alternative treatments like psychedelics, stem cells, and certain supplements. He described the FDA as resistant to health innovations and claimed that the FDA's war on public health is about to end. According to a post from his on X from October, he wrote that employees involved in what he described as a corrupt system should preserve their records and prepare to be ousted.
That's
So,
my favorite.
yeah. So, what do you make of that? FDA policies, alternative health treatments. Any commentary on that one? I know we didn't talk too much about this offline together. I'm just kind of putting this article out there here.
Yeah, I guess he would. This kind of goes more towards the supplements and holistic solutions or home remedies and all that stuff, kind of pushing back on pharmaceutical reliance and trying to get more towards, remedying at home. I've got no problem with people making those decisions on their own, and I don't think the government should have any influence on which way you decide to heal your problems or, try to push yourself towards better health.
Hmm.
But I think that the nutraceutical holistic approach has also created a sort of cult mindset around it. That being that a lot of people who kind of push this nutraceutical holistic idea also, add on top of that, don't trust the science, don't trust your doctor, this and that. But most doctors are also, going to tell you, do what you'd like. And if you don't want my service, that's fine.
Right.
They're not going and saying, don't do the holistic stuff. They're just saying, you can make your choice. These holistic people are saying, do not trust your doctors. I'm the only answer for you. That's a problem,
Mm.
especially because, I mean, a perfect case is Steve Jobs. He was sold on the idea that he could naturally heal himself of cancer. He's dead now.
Hmm.
He did not want to be dead when he was getting closer to that, and he tried to reverse his decisions. Unfortunately, he didn't have that opportunity because he had wasted too much time trying to use these unproven methods to heal his problems. If there
Hmm.
are solutions out there that are natural, let's study them, let's look into them, let's push them as best we can. But so far, pharmaceuticals have been proven to be what heals you from sickness, maybe not what prevents it, though. And that's, I think, what we need to address more.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that you used a great example there with Steve Jobs. I do believe in Western medicine. I do believe that it is abused. I do believe we shouldn't turn there first. And I'm not talking about a diagnosis of cancer. That's a totally different story.
Yeah.
I just don't I think certain diseases and illnesses that maybe like a hypertension or a pre-diabetic, something like that, before you start hitting medicine, maybe change your diet first.
Yeah.
Adjust the route. I mean, I can't tell anybody that because I'm not qualified. Just being nutrition coaches or trainers or whatever, you really have to tread lightly on that kind of stuff. You can mention it, but you can't necessarily say for sure. You can just give the whole like, this will help you do it, but take medicine if you'd like. I like the way you put it there, that the way the doctors put it, hey, you can try the holistic stuff, but this is also a viable option, and it's your body, your choice. Pick which way you want to go with it. But just let you know, I laid out all the options for you. So that's kind of a good route to go. I don't shun Western medicine and treatment if you already are sick. I believe in not being on meds. I think you should be getting off of them if you can. But that's just me. I know sometimes
And
that's
one
not
more,
possible, but go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, one more point to that I would say is, we've got to understand kind of what this I would say the weight to the comment of, don't trust the institutions, don't trust your doctors and stuff. I hate using the word privilege because it's overused, but it is coming from a privileged position of how we are literally sitting here today, not worrying about, viruses that are going to kill us or kill our kids and just the amazing, you know, inventions and solutions that that have come out of this last century just from science, just from those people doing uh, what they do every single day. So I think that it's really important to understand that we're in a position of privilege where we get to think about prevention finally. And it's amazing that we're living in this time where we are privileged enough to be able to start thinking about prevention. Um, it just now has to start becoming the conversation,
Right,
right?
right. And
But it's just wild. It's crazy how we have gotten to the point now where we can deny the benefits of medicine because medicine has given us the opportunity to do so.
yeah, yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I think I'm going to actually double down on that privilege thing. I don't like the word either, but what we are actually privileged to have an abundance of food. To the fact that we're
Yeah.
able to sit here and debate over a coloring in a food, whereas 100 years ago, 200 years ago, some people shit was scarce in some places and still is today in some areas. You know what I'm saying? Like we are fortunate to live in the time that we do. It's to where we can just go to the grocery store and pick something up. I think we get a little, we take it all for granted. We do. We're complaining about the prices, which yes, are a little high right now, and I would love to see them come down, of course. But at the same time, like, hey, what a time to be alive. We don't have to wake up in our caves and go with a spear and go hunt a mammoth to try to feed our family for the next 6 weeks. I mean,
Right.
it's, what I'm saying. That's an extreme example, but I mean, just kind of like, you said it on the medicine side, but I just kind of bringing it over to the food side of health and everything like that. And like, hey, we're able to just mass produce all this food and we're worried about what's in it, but we should also be grateful that we're in a situation to where we can live like this and have
Yeah.
the choice. You also have the choice. People forget you have the choice to just not eat the food with the crap in it. You don't have to eat this
Yep.
stuff. Like you don't have to eat Sour Patch Kids. I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
but
To buy enough calories to survive, you need $1
is that right?
or maybe two. I know 900 calories for yeah, $1. Yeah, 900 calories for $1 these days. So, you know, homeless people are overweight now. I mean, it's a whole different world that we're living in.
Yeah.
And not to say that they're eating the right things either, but it's just different problems than we used to deal with, and
Right.
we're in a different. It's just wild.
And these are the things we just mentioned are things we should be talking about in this because, we're, you're going for the ingredients. I think we should look at what's in our food all the time and we should do studies on it and understand what it is. I get it. But look at this. And then we're automating everything. Everything's automated. The more inventions and innovations that come with technology that keeps us idle, keeps us sitting there. If we have more personal, people are overweight right now and obese because the personal responsibility upon ourselves to move, to eat well, and everything is just been never been more important just because of the abundance and the ease of everything. So wouldn't you agree with that? That's a big aspect of all of this?
Yep.
I
Yeah,
have to.
absolutely. Abundance, I mean, abundance of food. But on top of that, I would say that, while we have an abundance of food, we're lacking in our ability to choose properly.
Right.
So,
That's exactly right. The ability to choose has to be there. And speaking of which, ability to choose, that goes to number 4 here, which is
mhm.
vaccination policies.
Mm,
This is a huge one for people. Now, I'm going to tell you people straight up right now, I am not an vaccine person. I think what happened with COVID-19 was that the anti-vaccine crowd was very small, very niche, very just they were their own people. They did their thing. It says, all right, whatever. They would have to get different policies. If you had to send your kids to school, you had to get something figured out. But I think with the way that it was handled during the pandemic, I believe that it caused a lot of skepticism and for people to have a lot of distrust in these vaccinations. I do think that there are plenty of them that are necessary, some maybe more than others. I don't know a lot. I know that my children have gotten some of these. I know I have. ones that have been studied longer, obviously, than the COVID vaccine. I think that one stands alone in this whole. I don't think I want to take that one because I didn't, and I don't think I shamed anybody really that did. I mean, whatever. But at the same time, Kennedy is outspoken as a skeptic for vaccinations, claiming that no vaccine is entirely safe and effective, and linking vaccines to autism. Claim disproven by scientific research. There is a source for that I could read later. He suggests reviewing vaccine safety and informing the public more comprehensively. He assured that those that want to be vaccinated will still be able to do so, stating that his stance is you ought to know the safety profile and risk profile and the efficacy of that vaccine. And that's it, says me who can't read. So, so I don't know where you're at with vaccinations and all of this and this part of his policy, more or less. Have you gotten into the vaccination part of this Make America Healthy Again initiative?
Yeah, I'll say one. I am not a expert at all on this. I focus on food, nutrition, and movement for the most part. But when it comes to vaccines, just by debating my friends and stuff like that, I have dug into it a little bit. So you can take all of what I say with a grain of salt, but I will say that I am basing my information off of government and, the government and the scientific consensus rather than maybe what RFK would say. Although I will say that while I was following RFK during his campaign, I also found myself falling into interest of what he was saying around vaccines. And then when I went out of my way to look into it, a lot of the stuff that he kind of mentions, and at least in my opinion, fell apart. He worries about safety and efficacy, but we have done a lot of trials and we have a process to make sure that vaccines are safe and effective. In terms of what was different with COVID, I would say that the COVID response, in my opinion, was basically the scientific process working itself out in real time and the public not knowing how to react to that. Mainly being, we thought that the government always had the answers or the right answers right away, except everybody was glued to their TV day after day after day, and things were changing day after day after day. And that's just how science works. But, we have to communicate, or, scientists, because I'm not one, but they had to communicate, what is the information we have available right now. And if that changes and people tune in the next day and that changes and they're like, wait, I thought you said this, well, then that trust in the government drops. And I totally understand that. I also think that the culture around COVID is what kind of pushed a little bit more distrust in the institutions and science in general, which unfortunately has trickled down to, just everyday workers in the field like doctors and nurses and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that in general, big issue around all of that. I think that we did not address it appropriately, but we also didn't not do it correctly, in my opinion. I think that was just everything working itself out.
Yeah, that's a good take on it, I'd say. I think I don't want to get too into the COVID vaccine thing. I think this is passe and beat to death. But I think the
Actually, sorry, I do have one more point.
No, go ahead.
Before I forget it. I think that when it comes to vaccinations, individual choice is a big question mark for me. I think people should still have an individual choice to take a vaccine. No government official should be injecting you with something that you do not consent. I don't think that's ever really been on the table, though. I think what was on the table was you can't go to a certain place that decides that you can't go to it because you don't have this vaccine. Did people not like that? Sure, but that's what we do with public school. And if you don't want to do that, you can homeschool yourself. I think that it's a community, we're talking about trying to reinvigorate American society. We talk about, being a part of a community. You kind of have to have duties in which you don't necessarily fully agree with them, but you still have to do them to make sure that other people aren't affected by your decisions, right? And I think that when it comes to immunity, a lot of people don't really understand what viral immunity really is, and they don't understand how other people are impacted by your decisions of what you decide in terms of vaccination. So I'm not going to go out of my way and say that anyone's a bad person for not getting a vaccine, because I think a lot of people don't understand. And that's actually up to the government to help them understand a little bit better, educate people better on vaccines. But in terms of all of that, I don't like how businesses, or even, if you were going to work or social settings and stuff like that, where people were like, oh, you're not vaccinated and now you've lost like a social respect card. It's like, we can't go back to that.
No.
That was just lunacy.
That was the worst part of it. To me, it was that shaming almost that you're like, ew, you got cooties or some shit because you didn't get this shot. Yeah, I was 100% against it. Not gonna lie. Not gonna get into it right now because I'm not trying to prove a point. I'm just didn't get a good feeling from it, and didn't like the whole vaccine passport, which was I was told I was a conspiracy theorist when I brought it up. And I said, hey, they're talking vaccine passports. And then it happened. It happened. It actually was
wild, man.
It was a thing.
That was crazy.
And I said, then I go to my conspiracy theorists, anti-conspiracy friends. Oh, what, now what? Oh, dude, they have nothing to say to me. I'm like, all right, whatever, dude. Anyways, that was gone, and I don't wear masks. But anyways, last
slip that in there.
I just had to say it. Last but not least, we mentioned on it. We'll touch on it really quick here again. Is the fluoridation. Fluoridation. Thank you. I don't know science very well. Nick does. Okay. I'm not sitting here pretending. You guys know who I am. I come on here. I know how to make good food and count your macros for you and make you look good. That's what I do. And that's why Nick's here, because I can't pronounce words. So so that's what we're doing. So anyways, Kennedy opposes adding fluoride to drinking water, arguing that it's an unnecessary and ineffective way to deliver the mineral now available in toothpaste. He asserts that high fluoride levels may harm children's IQ, though the CDC, who nobody trusts anymore, and expert panels maintain there's no convincing evidence of adverse effects from community water fluoridation. Did I say it right? Fluoridation?
Fluoridation, yep.
Fluoridation. Got it. Learning new words. So you talked about that a little bit earlier. So maybe we just breeze over that again. So what are we thinking here? I've done no research on this part of this. So I'm gonna let you talk.
Yeah. Just a brief overview again of what we talked about kind of around the red dye 3 situation. His understanding around fluoride toxicity levels is, again, another misconception on how we calculate those numbers in the first place. And then comparing, oftentimes people will compare European standards to our standards and so on and so forth. And it's a general misunderstanding of what's actually going on. So a lot of the communities in America that are actually at risk for toxic levels of fluoride are actually at risk of that because of natural occurring fluoride within their water, not because of added fluoride via community solutions. So by the way, your local government determines the fluoride content in your water and the levels, and you can check what that level is on, I believe, EPA's website if you look up your county. So you can find out what your fluoride levels are, but how many counties are actually affected? Well, we're actually only talking about 1 million Americans in total that are affected by this. So I don't think addressing it on a national level is necessarily the right way to go. And then the question is also, how do we get these communities away from relying on their natural water resource or water sources and getting to a more appropriate level of fluoride consumption? So we're talking about 1.5. You know what? I'm not even going to throw the numbers out there because I can't remember what the measurements were. But I think it's 1.5 to 0.7. 0.7 being what most people should consume. 1.5 being that toxic level. They do all of this, by the way, again, just to reiterate, based off of your everyday consumption from all products that you might be exposed to at any angle. So they are considering a wide range of products and places in which you can consume fluoride. So they're not just saying, you can overdose if you drink it and then also brush your teeth, that's not, they've already considered that. If you thought of the question, most likely toxology specialists have answered that for you in their adjustments. Which I had all of these questions when I was first looking at this and asked and got those answers. So it's luckily we have really good specialists who think about these things that our monkey brains come up with. So
Very good. Very good. And again, we're in a very privileged state to just have clean water and be able to brush our teeth and just do that,
yeah.
So fuck it. I mean, whatever. So, all right. So, I think we kind of like dug pretty deep in it. So now for the rest of this here, let's just kind of like, we'll just go through and do some high level stuff. We're going to have a little fun. Let's just go real quick, Nick. I want you to go first here. Give me a pro and a con of the Make America, just high level it as hell, without getting too deep. A pro and a con. Yep. The top pro and top con in your brain.
Yeah. Top pro for me would be they are finally addressing chronic disease and trying to push for preventative efforts to address that. That would be the biggest pro ever. I mean, please keep doing that. Please, this has to be a part of every presidential campaign moving forward, especially because the public is so behind it. The con, I would say, would be how they're actually talking about it. We're labeling things as toxic, poisonous. We're talking about all these chemicals and creating this anxiety around food. You know me, this is one of my biggest things. I'm very afraid at how we're spawning a generation of people who are scared of our food when that's impacting their decisions as well. That's the behavioral change that we got to start talking about. If we're going to talk about trying to improve people's health at an individual level, then we have to talk about how we're talking to people about these things, because words matter. This is going to impact people's decisions down the road, and it already is. Right. So that would be my
that's really good, man. And I'm not going to add too much because mine are very similar to yours, kind of like you said. Just having this part of this policy in all the presidential campaigns, focusing on health, preventative measures, everything like that. It's a great pro. It's gotten some awareness, but that's also part of the con, which is kind of what you said, is kind of putting this into a poisonous, scary, fear-based place. Going to have people maybe buying certain things and going different routes out of fear and not really doing much and spinning their wheels a bit. And I think that's the main issue with it. And then, of course, like you said, some of the inconclusive studies that have been done. Again, science is always moving and changing, but hey, those are good points that you made. So those are my pros and cons. I think we pretty much have a very similar outlook on that. I did also ask social media a little bit what they thought about this RFK and more of the red dye thing, because that was kind of going on at the time when I posted it. It is not just RFK, but I also want to put out there that Governor Newsom out in California back in October signed an executive order banning this dye, along with a few other ingredients or chemicals within our food. So this is not necessarily, I say that just so it doesn't get so politicized. Right. Now that RFK's aligned himself with Trump, while he's a career Democrat, he's now obviously working on the Republican side. This is a very Democratic governor out in California. That both of these guys are under some pretty big criticisms, but just to show you that it's being done in multiple places. So here's some of the responses, and I said I'd leave them anonymous, so I'm going to read them. Nick, you can give your thoughts if you'd like, or I'll just leave a little, and we'll just respond to them. First one, it's a small step, but let's see here. It's a small step, but good nonetheless. I think education on nutrition and fitness is more important. What do you say?
Yeah.
I have to agree with that.
More important, I would disagree. I think that, we can share the importance across all different solutions, because I think that different people require different solutions. So, sure. Importance is subjective, but sure. I would totally agree with the rest of it. Yeah,
absolutely. It is correct. And then I have really high hopes that he will make some impactful changes. Very generic statement, but you think he's going to make impactful changes? Does he think that are good?
Yeah, my answer on this might not be too short. I would say no, I don't think so. I think that actually he's in a position where, he's trying to appeal to a conservative audience, which has historically pushed back on any regulation around food, especially specific ingredients. So it's going to be interesting to see how he plays with that environment. I think that they're he's talking to them and engaging with them on a personal level. So that might help, bridge the gap a little bit. But in terms of anything that's going to be beneficial, he hasn't proposed anything that's going to actually make an impact yet. So until he does that, I'm going to have to say no.
I guess what would have to be seen to call it an impact? Like, what would we have to see from this? Like, would we have to see it would have to be irrefutable evidence that cancer rates or or autism has lowered, has been significantly changed just by removing a few ingredients, and what else has changed? Like there's all these different factors. There's a scientific term for it. What is it? What's the one I'm looking for? You're not adjusting for variable something or other. I don't know.
Confounding variables.
Man, that might be it. It sounds right. Sounds like you know what you're saying, but I don't know. I'm not asking you, Nick, because I don't think anyone knows the answer to that. But that's my thing. Is like, what is an impact that this is going to make? What's the impact? I don't know. But hey, hope there's one there. Either way, no matter what happens, we should all be on the same board that we want to go down a good path for good, impactful on our health. Bottom line. Next one here. What's interesting is that nothing is really changing until 2027. And this is again around the red dye. And the reason for that is because they're giving the companies a year to reconstruct these food products that contain red dye number 3. I believe that's really the only reason why it's 2027, right?
Yeah, the 2027 number is because we have to take some time to get there in terms of applying it. What companies are shipping into the country, they also have to apply to our regulations standards, so it takes a while.
Well, this person here believes that all dyes should be banned. I think it's a step in the right direction. So I don't know, what do we think? Do we need to ban all dyes? I think we kind of talked about that. Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. It's going to impact consumer decision and lead to a little bit of food waste, I would say.
Yep. And somebody else here said it's about damn time. So she just wanted to put that in there. So that's fine. Another person here says, I think it's a good start. I'm for less government, but our food is fucked up and something needs to change. So is our food fucked up?
No, I think we're doing pretty okay. I would say that it's more the individual's decisions that's fucked up.
Yeah, I can see that. I think
but not blaming that on the individual.
I think it's the individual's decision influenced by marketing and our culture. Yep. And what I'll get into at the end of this episode, when we get there, is about our culture, and that's where I see the main problem. I'll get to that. But another last one here. Love what RFK stands for. All dyes, in my opinion, should be banned tomorrow. I don't like new scum. So, again, with the all dyes being banned, we know that maybe we don't think that at this point. But hey, you know what? People are free to their opinions, and we're going to go ahead and respect those. So, thank you to those who responded here. Some want to see the dyes history. Some don't care. Some think it's a step in the right direction. And I don't know. We will find out where this goes. In my opinion, and I've been saying this since the start of the minute I saw Maha Make America Great Healthy Again. The minute I saw that, I am sorry, but I do not believe this is going to do much of anything. That's just my opinion. So a few other things we wanted to talk about here. Nick, I sprung this a bit on you late, and now, here we go.
Hey, I'm here for it.
You're here for it. So I just want you all to know out there that, Nick, if we don't know all the answers, okay, and I don't know how to say these things. So this is going to be fun because I don't know how to say a lot of this. So you could listen to me stumble and mumble and laugh. So I just kind of we talked about, red dye 3 a lot here because that was sort of the big change that got implemented. And I don't want to talk about it much anymore, even though it does rear its ugly head here again. But I did pull up off AI here on Google, what are some of, I just fucking Google because that's how people are going to find things now. It's the AI assistant, the AI overview on Google is just kind of going to become this new be all end all. Hey, this is where I saw it. Luckily, it does give you a little link to where each one came from different websites. You can kind of dig through and check how valid these are and the credibility of the people posting these things. So when I Googled this, I said some harmful chemicals in food include, and this one's the hardest one for me to say. Nick, you're going to have to help me.
Phthalates.
I was going to try it and let everyone laugh at me, not say it.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Phthalates. Well, I'll
let you do the next one.
No, that's fine. I knew how to say it. I knew how to say it.
Right.
Now nobody knows.
I didn't hear you try before this.
No, you're good. You're good. A group. So a group of chemicals. So these are a group of chemicals used in plastic food packaging and containers. That's another piece we haven't talked about, the containers of things. They've been linked to cancer, fertility problems, and developmental issues in children. We don't have to spend a lot of time on each of these because we've been talking a lot. But do you know anything about this particular? Have you looked into this at all? If you haven't, it's fine because I haven't looked into any of this really.
Yeah, I would say this is probably, all the microplastic stuff that people are talking about, endocrine disruptors and the whole nine. I would say that, I think that absolutely we should move away from plastics, especially when they're involved in anything that we're eating. As we're starting to see them in our bloodstream and all of that, and we're even seeing it in just ridiculous quantities in marine life. So we have to look at that and be like, okay, what are the impacts of that? I mean, we're struggling to figure that out right now. But I think that, yeah, microplastics are a worry. Yeah, I'm worried that there's a man-made, object floating through my bloodstream that used to be, maybe a wrapper on a candy bar. That's a little bit worrying to me. I mean, obviously, again, this is actually going a little bit against the point that I was making earlier, that appeal to nature fallacy. But yeah, I guess microplastics are a big question mark. Science doesn't know the answers to it. And so I would say that my anxiety around it is a little bit, excused. It's weird.
Yeah. I read a book called Eat to Beat Disease a while back. I've never heard of that one before, but I don't know. One thing the guy in the book told me, the doctor in the book, he said that, don't put your hot food in a plastic Tupperware or don't heat your food up in a plastic bowl. What do you think about that sort of stuff? Do you think that's good or is that just splitting hairs?
I mean, I would say that I agree with that, but I'm a victim of that all the time.
Nah, I stopped. I got ceramic and glass now mostly. I
gotta get glass.
I still use plastic Tupperwares. I've been meaning to switch to glass, but I have with letting my food cool down. I don't know if that matters or not, the temperature, but I've been letting my food cool down before I throw it into the Tupperware.
That's smart. No, I think that does matter. I think that the heat is exactly what causes the breakup of chemicals, which introduces it into your food.
So it sounds like heat has a thing with it because you mentioned before with the seed oils, it was only an issue if you heated those up. So something to keep an eye on. Okay, the next one I can pronounce, I believe, potassium bromate. You kind of like my bromate. That's kind of gay, isn't it?
Oh, jeez.
No, I don't mean gay. Hey, you know what I'm saying. It's gay.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
We support it. It's all good.
I'll give you a pass on that. Yeah.
Thank you, bromate. But anyways, potassium bromate, an additive that makes bread and rolls fluffy. It breaks down into bromate, which can cause cancer. So you're telling me that an additive to bread that makes it nice and fluffy that I like is a cancer-causing agent, carcinogen. Have you heard of this?
I mean, honestly, now that I'm looking down the list, I know 4 of these in total.
That's more than
bromate.
I know,
No, I can't say I couldn't say anything on this.
Well,
if it causes cancer, I don't know because further down this list we see red dye number 3 that causes cancer, but we know that's not true. So
all right, so we'll have to just dig more into it. Again, we don't have all the answers. We're just putting some stuff out there that we're finding here. Interesting. All right, here's one for me to try to pronounce. Let's do this. Don't ruin it for me now. Let me fuck it up. All right. Propylbaraben. Propylbaraben. How'd I do?
Yep.
You don't know how to say it either, do you?
I said it before the podcast, and now hearing you, I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce it anymore.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, go ahead.
An antimicrobial agent that prevents bacteria growth in products. It's been banned in California and Europe because it can negatively impact the endocrine system. So I don't know what that's actually in. It doesn't give me much more, so we'll just keep going. Bisphenol A, BPA, is a hormone disrupting compound that's toxic to human reproduction. It's been linked to preconscious puberty, PCOS, and infertility. You know anything about that?
Yeah, I think this is again the plastics, chemicals involved in like plastics. I've heard about BPAs. I think this is also like something that you should worry about with like containers and stuff. I think containers like water bottles have BPAs and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I would say that in general for anybody, try to just make sure that most of your stuff is coming from like glass, right? Which is wild that we moved away from that. But I think glass is definitely superior. We tried to rely on plastic because it was cheaper, and I think that in terms of like consuming things, I don't think plastic's going to last.
Yeah, I think
Well, at
that's
least hopefully, right?
that one seems like it has more backing
Yeah.
overall. Here's one it got a lot of play. Aspartame. It's an artificial sweetener reported to cause seizures, headaches, mood disturbances, and cancer. It's sometimes listed under the brand names like Equal or NutraSweet. So Equal, I think Sweet and Low, maybe things like that. These artificial sweeteners. What do you think? You don't. I don't believe you're on board with those. With
Yeah,
the
I disagree completely. I think that Google AI is picking up on the the Newsmax stories here. No, I think that aspartame is fine. We found evidence of it causing cancer again in rats, but we have to get to 9,000 times the exposure limit in which somebody comes across on a day-to-day basis. So we're talking about in a single day, I think at my body weight, I could consume roughly around 60 something cans of soda, diet soda.
yeah. Wow.
I can't drink that much, just to let you guys know. I'd probably have a heart attack
Oh
before
yeah.
I got there because I'm super sensitive to caffeine. So,
Oh yeah.
are you going to get to a unhealthy level of caffeine or aspartame first? That I think is a good question. And
Okay.
actually, are you going to drown from the
Yeah. I
from
mean,
the soda?
exactly. You drowners, you can have too much water and anything technically, really, realistically though, I think anything in excess at a certain point is poison. It just is.
Yeah, water
It's
is,
just
yeah.
it's water for sure. And then let me ask you this. You're a nutrition guy as well.
Hmm.
And one question I get all the time, let's see what your thoughts are. I'm your client right now. You know,
Yeah.
Nick, I gotta have my coffee in the morning. You know, I'm gonna measure out my creamer, but man, I don't know. Should I be using sugar or stevia or sweet and low?
Sweet
Well,
and low, yeah.
what
Uh,
which one?
I actually I forgot the answer to this one because I always just I don't actually drink coffee, to be honest with you, so I don't come
Okay.
across this very often. Sweet and low and stuff like that. I'd have to look into that. I just know that sucralose and aspartame are fine. So if
Okay.
either of those are sucralose or aspartame, then we're good to go.
Yeah, I just went back to stevia. But whatever.
Yeah.
I don't care because I got it. But
Was that a personal question, Mike?
no. I mean, no, I
Okay.
just like to see what people think because I'm always
Gotcha.
I actually personally am on the fence because of all the sugar. First of all, it's not necessarily an internal deal for me in a sense
Hmm.
because I'm fine with artificial sweeteners. I would prefer them actually because they're technically 0 calories. So I would rather have that than throwing sugar into my coffee
Right.
and drinking my calories, which I don't like to do.
Yeah.
So I go with that route. I don't care. It is what it is. All right. Then to finish this off here, brominated vegetable oil, a substance that has been linked to serious health problems, including cancer and nervous system damage. Have you heard of that one?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, we're going to just go right past it. The next one is red dye 3, which we talked enough about. And lastly here is titanium dioxide, a substance that's been linked to serious health problems, including cancer and nervous system damage as well. Have you heard of that one?
I have not.
Okay, well, those were Google AI's top terrifying ingredients to scare you today and make you not want to eat anything and question everything you do all the time and live in heightened fear and anxiety, which will then
Right.
lead you to probably binge eat some stuff and not care and then actually become unhealthier in that sense.
Absolutely.
Meaning, of which, you know, as we kind of wind this thing down here, um, you know, we want to improve human health. And I started off a little bit saying that it's a lot of it is on an individual level, but you know, at some points, like you said, availability, education, things like that need to be maybe implemented by the government in a sense. So where do we draw the line? Where does the government stop and where do we start? What do you think?
Yeah.
Where do they stop? Where do we start to where? Because you don't want the government to start. What's healthy is you know what we do as nutrition coaches is we'll run a caloric deficit or surplus or maintenance or with a macronutrient profile for clients, and what we will do is suggest they eat within that and figure that out, and then that's kind of the scientific what they have to do. It's the rules. We don't make them. We just have to follow them. But like we don't want the government to regulate our food in any way. I don't believe. I mean, as far as the consumption goes. Um,
Yep.
So I think that becomes a little bit, infringing on our freedoms a bit. So where does it end and start end with the government and start with the individual? Where does it become fully individual's responsibility? Because I believe that's a vast part of this is decision making. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to ask what are the influences, right? What is driving people to make their decisions? And I think that then we have to ask what role does the government play in that, and where is it going too far? I think that the government's role starts with helping us just make better decisions without forcing us to make decisions. So what I mean by that is, one, a lot of people are living without decisions, aka people in food deserts who are, lacking a grocery store, but rather have, access to a liquor store or a mini mart or a 7-Eleven. Those places, which are impacting, tens of millions of Americans, are lacking of decisions, lacking of choices of, availability of whole foods. We're lucky to have anything more than an apple and a banana, in a 7-Eleven, and then everything else is processed crap for the most part. Crap meaning devoid of any nutrients that are actually going to help people live their everyday lives. We're talking about, children, 1 in 5 children in America are growing up without access to nutrition, which is basically impacting their development. So, this is a huge problem that needs to be addressed by, in my opinion, the government, because we can't just keep yelling at people to eat better that live in a food desert, because they can't get to the food that is better for them in the first place. Maybe we should start talking about increasing the, emphasis on grocery stores being built in those locations, or at least incentivizing businesses to build grocery stores in those locations, right? So that's one way that the government can kind of step in and immediately start to address the problem that is impacting people the most right now. I think that, we can start talking about the marketing standards behind, all of these flashy colors and all of these advertisements, the packaging with all of the, crazy colors and words that are alluding to healthy, but aren't actually healthy for you. Those things need to be addressed, because that's what's driving consumer choice. It's not that the ingredients within the foods are going to immediately pull you to it, right? We like to talk about, these foods being addictive. I think that our stress and our emotional state is really a lot of what is driving our decisions, not that these foods are pulling you to them, but rather our emotional states are pushing you towards them. So it's really that, once you are in that defeated state of, being constantly stressed and overworked and, lacking of the actual financial capabilities to feed your family appropriately, well, now you're stuck with having to buy these things that are falsely telling you that they're healthy for you, are flashy and colorful, and your kids go, I want that, I want that. And, what are we supposed to do at that point, right? We have the guidelines are available for every American to read. And whether they're perfect or not is up to question, but it's damn well good enough to get people to the point where they can be healthy. Now we have to ask, how do we actually supply those people with the things that are on the guidelines? That's the biggest question. And then I would say that, honestly, it comes down to, as I was talking to earlier, access to healthcare. This is a big debate within the country. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but look, we have to start considering making sure that every American has access to healthcare no matter what, because there is no excuse for the best country in the world to be lacking. I believe it's 1 in every 3 Americans don't have access to healthcare.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people. I mean, what are we doing? Yeah. And we already see that, universal healthcare works elsewhere. I'm not sure why we're not doing it here, in my personal opinion. I know a lot of people are going to talk about the taxes associated with that, the care associated with that in terms of quality, or taking away your private insurance and stuff. But we also have to ask, is that private insurance benefiting us anyways? And also, what are we going to do with it, right? If people don't have the care right now, what does it matter about the quality? And what that at least is my personal opinion on the situation. And I think that that's also impacting them because, we talk about education, empowering people with the information, but they're not in front of the professionals that have the right information for them. They're getting their information from TikTok and they're going back to work. It's a problem. I mean, TikTok isn't exactly the most, educational platform for these people to be learning things. And as we see the response with Maha, we're only encouraging false information around, our food and nutrition. So we're trying to help people and empower them with information, except we don't have the right resources for it. So that's at least where I think the government starts. Where they stop is they absolutely cannot tell us what to eat, nor should they be, impacting influencing exactly what foods are provided to us and stuff like that. I don't think we're actually ever going to get there because we live in America. So I don't think that's actually a problem anyways, right?
No.
But, I think that maybe what I'd be okay with is introducing more fiber into foods. I'd be completely okay with saying, no, your product has to include fiber if it originally did. I think that that's completely fine to ask. We're talking about removing a lot of chemicals from, or, removing ingredients from foods. I think we should be talking about adding fiber back into a lot of these foods. So at least people aren't overeating them as much, right? And at least, Americans are actually getting their appropriate amount of fiber anyways. Most Americans are only getting 7 to 9 grams of fiber, which is like 3 times less than what you're supposed to get.
Men need 35, women need 24. Is that where you trying to
Yeah.
hit?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's super important that people get this too, because fiber is known to be one of the most natural sources to improve our health. So if we're talking about natural sources, including natural things into our diet, just like Maha is trying to push, fiber right there, baby.
We're going to do a podcast on fiber, even though we have another one lined up. But anyways, I agree with a lot that you said. I have, I basically agree with pretty much everything you said. The only thing is the things you called out are the universal health care, what the drawbacks could be of that. But again, I see your point both ways. For me, let's see, with the government, I think what they need to be in charge of is obviously the quality of the food. And we know that there is a benefit to the FDA, but I think the FDA has its flaws. I think the quality of the food, and I think the availability of the food and the cost of the food. I know that involves, big corporations and things, but again, this is our food system and it needs to be affordable. Availability and affordability need to go hand in hand. You shouldn't have to go into debt and into financial struggle to make the decision to eat well. And I do think this needs to be made available and affordable from the government. I guess the FDA can be a little better with their nutrition labels. I'm glad they have them. I'm glad they make improvements, but they still have some labeling laws that I'm not a fan of. For instance, they can round down to the nearest 0 or 5th. I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it really just becomes an issue when it comes to 0 calories. As far as like your oils and your sprays, they make the why do they make the serving size 1/4 of a spray? Or that's what they have. If you go look it up,
it's so ridiculous.
And there's 736 servings in there, and they say it's 0 calories. Well, the reason they do that is because they've selected a serving of that has maybe 4 calories. So that way they can label it as 0. So if you were to take that oil and spray it all over your food, you are not spraying 0 calories all over your food. I've seen drinks that have the nutrition label, and it says 1 serving is 0 calories, and the whole bottle is 3, but it's 10 calories. That math doesn't add up. That's because it was probably 4 calories a serving, and then it times 3 is 12 calories in the bottle, which they rounded down to 10. So I think that sucks for people who are actually really for their health are trying to count their calories, because we have an abundance of food here and we have the privilege of having to regulate our food ourselves. No one's going to do that for us, and no one should, because it's our own personal decision to do it. So I think the FDA needs to be as transparent as fuck. That's why you rarely ever see on the nutrition labels that something has 37 calories in it or 46 calories or 3 calories. You see N's and zeros and 5s. That's because they're able to round it. And then the same thing goes for the and they can't really do much about the restaurant posting of the calories on their menus, because let's face it, the teenager that's making your burrito bowl at Chipotle,
Yeah.
he's not weighing your guac. She's not weighing your sour cream. It's just an estimate of what it's going to be. The benefit to the calorie counts on menus is just that, hey, if this is 500 calories on the menu and this is 1,200, you could assume that you're going to be getting a lighter meal with this one. So that's just basically what I'd like to see a little bit more from the FDA, is that transparency with their labels, and maybe put a little more effort into that and a little accuracy. But from there, I think everything else is basically up to us. I do believe that our system, our structure of life is a little fucking skewed, in my opinion. I do believe we put way too much emphasis on work, on being at work, on identifying with what we do, and the cost of living right now is making that even more of a struggle. I do believe we should have, in a perfect world, more time set with our families, with our children, and with our time to be in the gym, to be able to prep and cook a meal. I don't like that it's just kind of become this routine that we just drive through McDonald's, just drive through Taco Bell. Who cares? Just get something to eat and got to get on with work. Got to go. You can't live like that, because I've seen it happen. I've seen many people at retirement age, which is, well, the mid 60s. That's typical. I see that's where they have the health problems. They never enjoyed their retirement because they were just too much into it, and then you go through the system for 45 years, and all of a sudden what you're left is a broken, beaten, obese body sucking down pills, and now it's too late, and now you're in the twilight of your life, the golden years where you want to see your children, your grandchildren, and you're dead. And that's because of the system and your choices too. It's not just the system. The system plays a role in that, because you're put in it, you have no choice, but in some cases, but you can do it. And it does come. Sorry, I know it sounds like I'm spewing all about the system right now, but it is an individual's choice to break through that. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, but it can be done, and it has to be done. And that's just where I think that everything needs to be at.
Man,
and that's,
yeah.
and then when you take that all into consideration, all that deep shit and all that real stuff and all that time consuming, and talk about red dye number 3, fuck off. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay.
No,
Like,
I totally agree.
I wasn't
Mike,
telling you. I wasn't telling you to fuck off.
No, yeah, no, Mike. The thing is, for the audience to understand, we've been talking about this for maybe 2 weeks. Voice messages, DMs, going back and forth. I mean, Mike, we've been digging through this as much as possible, and hitting it from every angle, sending each other, podcasts from. So we have looked through this like crazy, and honestly, one of the biggest things I think we both agree on, and is one of the biggest influences, really just the culture around all of this, the work-life balance, around just what America is. We need to address the overworked, overstressed part of our country, or else all of our decisions after that are influenced by that, right? We have to understand how our mind is set up is going to impact how it works, right? And so if we're constantly deregulated, and we're constantly in our heads about everything other than our taking care of ourselves, right? And maybe taking some time to breathe a little bit and just enjoy life, rather than stressing about how you're going to pay your bills, stressing about, how am I going to get my kid to practice, but also make sure that I'm, doing X, Y, Z, all of those things, right? We have to live through them, but we also have to come together as a culture and start to address how we're going to do this in a productive manner, because one, living like this is counterproductive. We get less done. We do not do better, and we're getting sicker from it, which is then compounding on what is impacting our quote unquote productivity, right? So we just need to address that, because it is such a big problem. I think we can have a whole podcast of our own on that part, because that's honestly become one of my biggest concerns as of today.
Well, there you go. We got three podcasts now, and I could keep going, but now that you said you want to do another podcast on it, I'm going to shut up, because we're already running pretty damn long here. I think we're about an hour and a half in, so we should be closing this thing up. It's been pretty good, man. But a great talk. I appreciate you doing this. We kind of dug into this Make America Healthy Again initiative, got some clarity on it, understand it a little bit, but really seeing what the real problems are in this country. I had more to say too, and I just lost it, because it's all infiltrates. But we're going to come back with this, because now we got 3 podcast episodes that we have, because we're going to be doing. We got a dietitian coming on with us, Mike Gorski. He's agreed to come on with Nick and I. We're going to be doing this one down the road here in the next probably a week or two on meat and eggs, red meat and eggs. And the reason I want to do that is because that has been two foods that have been demonized, back and forth. We don't know. Eggs are healthy now. They're not healthy now. They cost $1 now. They cost $4. I don't know what the fuck. But red meat and eggs. You just brought up fiber. Maybe we'll get that one out there. And then boy, I think we should do a panel one with another couple of people, even if we can fit it in. But the culture that we live around.
Yeah,
here. And
panel would be good for that.
yeah, well, I don't know. You and I talk a lot, man. We could be here for 4 hours if we had more people. But we'll see. So we'll see what we do. So I got that. We got all that we're going to be coming up with. But Nick, before we sign off here, any closing thoughts? And if you want to give out any contact information here, I'll put it in the show notes as well. But if you want to read off the best spot for you, for anyone to reach you, if they want to talk to you or work with you.
Yeah, my final take on all this would be just whenever we're thinking about public health, it's not only about the individual, it's about everybody. It's a collective, it's a society. So when we're talking about applying any policy to public health, try not to think about just yourself. Think about everybody who's impacted by it. In terms of where you can contact me, Nick Becht Fit, NickBechtFit. That is on Instagram. And that's all I'm gonna give you.
Yeah, that's fine, man. Stick it on Instagram, and that's all good, man. So if you need to reach Nick, that's where he's at. And I was gonna say one other thing, but I think I'm just gonna start closing this sucker up but this is a good thing. Look, we got a new administration in. They're do be doing some things we like, some things we don't like. It's just remember this with all of this political stuff. I think this is an added stress to everybody's life, and we've been tearing each other apart. Just based on views and based on a political ideology and clinging to things, and that's another stress that we got to get away from. So again, let's just try our best somehow to get along. And remember too, get, like Nick was saying, get healthy for yourself, but remember it does impact other people. You influence other people, and healthcare, the rates, if we're healthier as a society, maybe we're not paying as much for healthcare. Maybe there's more open, you can get an appointment quicker for something if you need it because we're healthier all around. And that's just going to help everything. There's a lot to this. It's a big effect, a big domino effect. But if you want to get in touch with me, it's at MFS Wellness. That's going to be Instagram, Twitter, or now X, whatever you want to call it, Facebook or LinkedIn, and Mike at mfswellness.com. So until we come back with the next one, which should be meat and eggs with Nick over here and another guy, we will talk to you on that. So for Nick, I'm Mike, and we'll see you on the next one.